We're at the interpretive center of Sibley State Park. Sibley was founded in 1919 through legislation, and in 4 short years, this particular state park is going to be celebrating its 100th year. We're going to be talking with Kelsey Olson, the new park naturalist, about the history of this state park, the connection that she has in particular with this state park, and then some of its programs that it has to offer. Sibley State Park is a jewel in the Willmar Lakes and Kandiyohi County area, so we're going to be highlighting this state park throughout the entire show. I'm Dave Hillenbrand, and this is Backroad Journal.
All right, my name is Kelsey Olson, and I'm the new lead naturalist here at Sibley State Park.
How did you come to Sibley State Park?
Yeah, I started with the DNR working up at Buffalo River State Park and also working on the scientific and natural areas up there, and really enjoyed being up there, was able to be on the prairie and go out to a lot of natural places. And straight from there I was able to get a full-time position with Gooseberry Falls State Park. I was up there for 2.5 years, and I had always said that if I was going to work at another state park in Minnesota, that it would be Sibley State Park. My family's from this area, and I've got some personal family history from here, and so it opened up, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to be able to come here. And after seeing the interpretive center and meeting the staff and being around the area, I just had to come. I grew up just west of the city, is kind of Maple Plain, Long Lake area. So it's the same type of ecosystem. You know, it's oak savanna and prairie and lots of wetlands. And so I really I just feel at home in this type of place. When I got this job, I would tell my friends, I'm back in my favorite ecosystem. And they would laugh, saying, who has a favorite ecosystem, you know? But I come here and I feel at home. You know, I love the North Shore, I really did. But when I'm here, I look out over the prairie and I wonder what's over there or what's in the woods. And there's just kind of a curiosity to it. But once I came down here and started looking around, I was just like, oh, this is good. You know, I call this living water. There's frogs, there's birds, you know, there's always just something going on, and I can really get into the phenology, the changing of the seasons, by just watching what's going on. So,
when you knew about the position being open, were you aware of the shoes that you might have to fill in coming into this position?
Yep, I did. I had overlapped with Dick a little bit in a previous position, working when I was up at Buffalo River. And yeah, Dick and a lot of other naturalists who have been around for a long time are kind of icons to a lot of people going to school to be a naturalist. So I had known Dick and talked to him a few times, and I knew the position had been vacant for a few years here. And after talking to the manager, you know, found out just what a gap that was within the community. So being able to come in and fill that gap and pick up some of those huge connections that Dick had made throughout his, 30-some years of working here. I think we've had 75 requested groups coming in, school groups from all over the area, and those are all connections. Those are all roots that Dick was able to lay down. So it's really good to come into a place where those connections and that tradition's already made. It's important to me to be part of a community. I think you're going to attract people from all over the states with the type of programming and the type of camping you have, and we offer so many different kinds here at Sibley. We have the primitive campsite if you want to be off by yourself. If you want to be by the lake and be able to go fishing and boating, we have that. But I really wanted to be someplace where there was some of that community tradition. You hear people that have been coming to the park for 30 years, people that are now bringing their children here, and it's an intergenerational thing to come here, and that's really powerful to me. Sibley is one of the top parks for overnight visits, and I think that is because we offer such a variety of different camping opportunities. You can come horse camping. You know, you can do the primitive camp. You can be down in all the hustle and bustle and be by the historic buildings at Lakeview, or come and be in Oak Ridge and camp in kind of the prairie area. And then we have the camper cabins too. So we offer a lot of different accommodations, even the group camp. I mean, you can have a huge family reunion with 100 people and have everybody here. So I think that's a big draw for people, that no matter what you want to do, we can accommodate you here at this park. Sibley is also kind of the oak savanna park of the state. There's not a lot of other parks that have this type of ecosystem, that have such good oak savanna forests, that have prairie potholes, you know, kind of these glacial lakes all over, and that's really unique for people. I don't know if that connection's always made, but I think people get here and they say, this is a neat area. This is a cool woods to be walking through. And I think that's something that makes Sibley really special. We have the bike trail that goes through the park. So we have our bike trails here, and there's future plans to connect with the Glacial Lakes Trail as well. So I mean, there's a lot of people who bring their bikes and will just bike around the park and use our trails, and then also those who will cut over to New London and jump on the trail there. So that is a unique thing, and you know, just offers that extra recreational opportunity. The Mount Tom Trail is definitely a really popular trail. That connects to another great big loop that makes up our hiking club trail within the park. So I recommend that to a lot of people. You know, Mount Tom is a really neat resource story that I'm learning of. It's been special. It's been a point of interest and a point people go to for a really long time. You look at old maps of the park and old maps of this area, and there's always Mount Tom marked on them. You know, you used to be able to go up on Mount Tom, and it was just this, I call it a bald little hill. You can go to a couple different places around here and still see that, but there was no trees up there. You could stand up there and get the view that you can get now when the observation deck, when that reopens, you can get that same view you used to be able to get from down below. So I think Mount Tom has a really unique history that and a unique story that can really share how this landscape has changed throughout time. So that's a really neat trail. We also have the Parker-Fremberg Trail. That goes behind the Interpretive Center here, back into the woods, and comes out by the Oak Ridge Campground. That is based on, named after two of the original homesteads that were here. You can see along that trail the foundation of stone foundation of where I believe one of the barns were. So that's a very beautiful trail. Takes you right into the heart of some really unique oak savanna forest. The horse trails are really popular. The Western horse trails take you through some remnant prairie that we have here. Right now you can walk in the big and purple blue stem, you know, are shoulder high. It's just this sea of grasses, and as you start to go into the woods, you see, you know, the bright red jack in the pulpit seeds and red berries, and yeah, it's a very cool time of year to be able to go on any of our trails right now. Definitely, in addition to Mount Tom, you know, I have a lot of people who come and they'll have a visitor from out of states or even out of country, and they want to show them the view from Mount Tom. In addition to that, they might hike up there and keep going on that hiking trail, and that leads straight down to Lake Andrew and the beach down there. So we have the nature store down there where you can rent canoes and kayaks, and then just a really nice sandy beach. There's always people casting a pole or two on the fishing pier. We did I Can Fish, partnered with Fisheries this year, and offered some really fun I Can Fish programs. But yeah, that beach is just always bustling. Towards the end of August, I had people coming up here saying, yeah, we were just sitting on the beach, and all of a sudden next to us a little snapping turtle had popped up, and we watched it crawl into the water. So it's a cool place. It's a fun place where you can go and you can recreate, but you can still see nature and have that really unique interaction. So Mount Tom, Lake Andrew, definitely popular places. And then all of the historical buildings we have here, including like the Cedar Hill Shelter, which is a popular rental for family groups that are coming. All of those were built by the Veterans Conservation Corps. And that's another thing that's kind of unique about Sibley. A lot of our state parks have buildings that were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. To be in that, you had to be, that was part of FDR's New Deal in the 30s. You had to be, I think it was 18 to 21 years old. To be in the Veterans Conservation Corps, which preceded that, it was veterans of like World War I. So it's kind of unique that we have that history, and there's some really neat stories. Each camp had like a camp newspaper or a camp letter that they would send out, and I found some really neat stories here about how healing it was for these men. They had just gone through this terrible time in World War I, coming back into the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, kind of just being beaten down. Well, they got jobs here, and these men had skills. They had jobs before they went into the war, versus the members of the CCC. They had grown up during the Dust Bowl. They didn't necessarily have an education and skills. They would hire LEMs, these locally enlisted men, to train them. But the VCC men, they knew how to do things. So you can look at some of our buildings here and see where they put, special little touches in, or did that extra little bit of skillfulness to make things really unique. Down by Lake Andrew is where the VCC camp used to exist. So there's a beautiful display down there with a lot of cool pictures of these guys, and tells about the camp. It was called the Three Bears Camp. It's called the Three Bears Camp because this is back in the day. They were stationed up at two harbors, and they had adopted these 3 black bear cubs. And I saw that up at Gooseberry too, maybe through their construction and disturbance, they would scare away. I don't know the story. But so they called themselves the Three Bears Club, or Three Bears Camp. And it was so funny, just kind of ironic to me, that I was thinking about transferring from Gooseberry, and to see, these guys were up at 2 harbors where I lived, and they came down here to Sibley. It was just kind of a funny little twist. And then after they were here, then these guys went to Itasca too. So I think of where these guys had the opportunity to live for years, some of the most beautiful places in the state of Minnesota, and they loved it. They had work. There's this little thing up at Gooseberry, a little fact that says when they started working for the camp, like on average, they gained like 15 pounds and grew 2 inches. How much truth to that? I don't know. But even in Willmar, when you go past, Robbins Island, there's the Civilian Conservation Corps statue. And that's a statue that's across the country at CCC locations, and it's this burly, strong-looking guy. So, yeah, it's a pretty unique history, and a really unique one that we have here, having the Veterans Conservation Corps.
Now, according to what I read out there, it looks like in 4 years we're going to be celebrating a 100th birthday here. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about that. It started in 1919, and what are we looking forward to in about 4 years? And you'll be here. So. Yep,
and I'll be here. It'll be a really big fun thing to celebrate. I've been diving into the park history. Sibley State Park, our management also manages Monson Lake State Park as well. And so I found some unique history that connects the two of them as well. It was in starting in 1917 into 1919, it was actually one of the survivors of the first 1862 Sioux Uprising, Westlake Massacre. It was one of the survivors of that who eventually moved back here and wanted to make this wildlife refuge into a state park. And so the people who made this into a state park back then were some of these, their farms were right back here. So there's a lot of local history of the people who made this a state park. Their relatives are still around here. Next year, we're celebrating the 125th anniversary of Minnesota State Parks and Trails. And so that'll be a neat opportunity too to start making some of these local connections. Hearing people's stories of being at parks and their history of being at Sibley, and getting some of that and making some of those connections will give us a great way to celebrate next year, and hopefully carry that out to figure out how to make this a really, the 100th, a really neat community event and statewide events as well. there's a quote out on our front board here about Henry Hastings' sibling that paraphrasing says there isn't anything that he isn't doing or wasn't doing that wasn't for Minnesota. And his Minnesota at the time were some of these first settlers that were coming. And so we have stories of people, living in dugouts, coming on the ox cart trail to live in a dugout here at Lake Andrew or out here in the prairie. And those dates are 1862, 1865. And so Sibley at that time, these were his people. This was his Minnesota that he was shaping and protecting. And so the park was named after him, and that was decided back in 1919 when he had been very, very influential in the States and especially in this area as well. We've had great managers throughout the year who've, shaped the resources and shaped the land of the park. One manager, Dave Lace, during his time here at Sibley, he worked really, really hard to acquire a lot of different land, acquire additional land. Our manager now is Jack Nelson. Our assistant manager is Gary Willmar. We have a really great friends group and supporters of Sibley State Park, and together they've worked to acquire even more land. So even this past winter, we got a new segment of what was farmland added to the park to restore. And so when you start to look at a map of what Sibley is now compared to what it was, it's a patchwork of restored land, and I think that's really unique, and it's really cool to me to see that that's continuing to happen. We're still acquiring, private land and making it public land for Minnesotans to enjoy. And so I think that's an exciting history, and it's exciting to me that it's still happening and to see where that will go. It's exciting that we could connect to the bike trail at some point and have that extra addition too. So it's a growing park. And I think that's really unique.
Tell me about the connection that you have to the history of the park. Now, did you have your grandparents lived here or something? Tell me about that history.
Yep. I have some personal history to the park on my mom's side. That family name is Newstrom. And my grandma, who was in Nelson, she's from Belgrade, so not too far away, so I still have relatives in that area. But the really unique connection is with my grandpa, Wally Newstrom. He used to work at the creamery in New London. That's where my mom and her sisters grew up for a long time. And still I can kind of see somebody in town and mention, Wally Newstrom, and they, oh yeah, tall guy who worked at the creamery. So it's super funny to be here and, be able to have people remember my grandpa. But his family homesteaded, actually my great-great-grandfather homesteaded some land that's just north of the park, and then they rented or leased some of the land that's in the park too, Grandpa says. And Grandpa just turned 94 this year, and I was talking to him just last week, and he goes, I thought it was my great-grandfather. He goes, no, it was your great-great-grandfather. And when he came, the last name was Nystrom. So when I was looking at park history the other day, I found the first park map buried in a file in New Ulm that has August, which would have been John August, but says August Newstrom on it, which would have been my great-grandfather. So that's really neat to, sit down at my desk or come out here and think, oh, yep, I'm sure my great-great-grandfather would have at some point, gone past here. This is where my grandpa played. It's just really crazy and really neat to have that personal history. So those are some of the stories that I want to hear when we start to celebrate our 125th of Parks and Trails and gear up for the 100th year.
Are there any homesteads still on the property, or any buildings from some of the old homesteads, or any part of the history of Sibley? Yep,
I'm starting to find some of those. Over here we have, just right behind us, we have one of the Parker Fremberg. I think it was the Parker farmstead, but it's a big stone wall. I believe that was the barn. We also have kind of a similar structure on the western side of the park from one of the other homesteads. There used to be a hotel here, And if you walk along the trail that goes along the shore of Lake Andrew, you get to this point in the hill that there's just this kind of hole, this little divot in the middle. That's where the hotel used to stand. And going around, there's some great maps made that mark where dugouts used to be and where homesteads and barns used to be. And you can go to some of these locations and start to see where dugouts were in the hills. And to me, that's just absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, my grandpa says, yeah, my grandpa came and he lived in a cave. Well, he lived in a dugout. Another man that I was introduced to, he said the same thing. He said, yeah, my dad was born in a dugout by Lake Andrew. So it's just crazy to go down there, you know, see this great hustle and bustle of people, but to think it once used to be this silent spot where, you know, a baby's first cry was heard, and now their family still lives in the area. So yeah, you can slowly start to see, once I figure out where all these places are, you can see some of these old homesteads. And like I said, it's still happening today, where we're taking down buildings to restore them. So that, you know, that story in 100 years, maybe that will be someplace that, you know, the future generations are finding where that used to be. People always love animal programs. You know, loon program, beaver program, Dick left a great legacy of the bluebird recovery program here. Those are always popular programs and fun for us to do as well. Transitioning into some new things this year, we have 2 turtles in our nature center. So I did a Turtle Tuesday every Tuesday throughout the summer, and it was huge and it was fun. You know, 30 people, some of the same kids from the community coming every week. So I was really surprised by that, and I was really happy about that. Did a lot of evening programs. Coming up this winter now, we'll be doing some snowshoe programs. We're going to be offering a cross-country skiing 101, where people can sign up beforehand. We'll have the skis, have all the equipment ready for you, and hit the trails and introduce people to that sport. We're doing Little Babe in the Big Woods program. So I think that's all of our programs are available online at our website. You can just search Sibley State Park and go to our events calendar for exact dates. But we're doing Little Babe in the Big Woods. I think that's the 1st and 4th Tuesday of each month from November to January. And that's targeted towards families who have little ones newborn to 3 years old. You know, winter can get hard to get out and about, especially with little ones. So offer families a good place to come and start that tradition of them visiting the park. So we're really lucky here at Sibley to have a beautiful interpretive center. It's in a really beautiful spot of the park. You can see the wetland behind me, so it's fun to come out here early spring. You can see wood ducks and hooded mergansers, turtles on logs, which is really fun. We're also very lucky we had donated a wood duck camera by Roger Strand, a local wood duck enthusiast. He promotes prairie potholes every year. And so you can go downstairs into one of our other exhibit areas. We have a big theater where we can do indoor programming. You can come in the spring and see the mother wood duck sitting on her eggs and see the ducklings hatch, usually around Memorial Day every weekend. So that really gets us geared up for the summer. Downstairs of the Interpretive Center, we have what we call the Trail Center. That's open 24/7, 365 days a year. There's bathrooms down there, and then a nice kind of picnic area that has a wood fireplace down there. So if it's winter, you can come out, go skiing, warm up, start a fire down there, have some hot cocoa, and hit the trails again. So yeah, you can always come and visit the Trail Center, and if the Interpretive Center is open, which it often is, you know, drop in and see what programs are coming up. The best resource for anything that's DNR related, making a camping reservation, specific details about park, is to go to the Minnesota DNR webpage. You know, it's simple Google, you'll go straight there. That will take you directly to a link where you can make reservations. Really nice reservation system where, say you want to go to a camper cabin. You can look at where they're available throughout the states or for a specific weekend. You can also go to the websites and see pictures of specific campsites, so you can know what you're to expect when you come. Also, each state park, each scientific and natural area, each recreation area has their own webpage on there as well. So you could search on there for Sibley State Park. That will tell you any updates that we have going on. That will give you trail reports in the winter. And then there's also the events calendar on there. And that will go, you know, that goes like 6 months out, I think. It goes pretty far out for what public programs are upcoming. So that's a really good, the best resource to go to. We also get stuff out to newspapers, and if you don't have access to a computer, just give the park office a call, give me a call at the Interpretive Center, and we're always happy to share that with you.
That's all we have for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time on Back Road Journal.